Well, welcome to Caring for New Hampshire, a ministry of Concerned Women for America of New Hampshire. I'm Elaine Driscoll, the State Director, and we are doing part 2 of a segment with the President of New Hampshire Right to Life, Kurt Wuelper. And I have to say, I apologize. I've been pronouncing his last name incorrectly for quite a while, and he's finally let me know that this is the correct pronunciation, and I apologize, but I'm so glad you're here anyway.
Well, I'm just glad to be here, and I'm good. And like I told you earlier, it doesn't matter if my name is Armstrong, right? But thank you.
Yes, and so let's continue. We're doing a great conversation. We were here talking about the different bills that are moving through our legislature right now, and a lot of them have to do with women's right to know, also on protecting the unborn, and we also have some things going on our national level, and so we were going to try to jump to that level at this point.
Yeah,
and
we
talk a little bit
can
more.
go back and forth between
Yes.
those. You wanted to talk about the recent, I don't know if it's a ruling or clarification.
It's a clarification, I believe, of the Affordable Health Care Act, which is
Obamacare.
known as Obamacare, yes. And the fact that here we are in our state, our executive council has ended funding, said, no, we don't want funding for abortion services here from the federal government. And we ourselves are asking for different procedures for them so that we can see how funding is being used. And we're working very hard to be supportive of women here in New Hampshire, but also to make sure that they are fully informed and understand exactly what's going to happen and what the ramifications could possibly be if they go through with a procedure such as abortion. And then what we're finding out now is with this Obamacare law, it's going to be melded in. All abortion services will be melded into your health care insurance, and there will be no co-pay required and no deductible for sterilization or for abortion procedures. And I'm astonished. I'm like, how can this be when obviously the American people are working so hard to try to preserve life and to ensure that women are properly cared for?
Well, you get into some deep water, and I'll just say to you that it is rather astounding that these types of rules and regulations are being made. And what they're really doing is they're trying to make abortion and sterilization in particular, but also abortifacient birth control, basic health care.
Right.
Well, abortion is not health care.
No, it is not.
Right? It's hardly ever even associated with the health of the woman in terms of a protective way, the way we think of health care. Hardly ever, and it's never healthful for the baby.
Well,
right?
it's not
but
even preventative care, because health care has always tried to look at itself as being preventative, but it's an after action. If you want to look at it.
I hear what you're saying. Right?
It's trying to solve something, I think, inappropriately.
Yeah, it's using an illegal, what should be an illegal cure for a problem that is really just a social problem.
Right.
Right. But anyway. So what they're trying to do, and this is why there was so much opposition to Obamacare in the first place. It's why there was so much outrage when the so-called pro-life Democrats caved in and allowed that to go through. It's because we knew that these opportunities were in the bill, and that this is the way when you take somebody as a rabid pro-abortion as Kathleen Sebelius, and you have her write the regulations.
Well, Obama's right there with her.
Well,
I mean,
that's true. That's true. He rates right up there, and I wouldn't call him.
Lockstep.
You know, he was called the food stamp president the other day. I call him the abortion president.
Yeah, he definitely
Right? But
is.
anyway, so you knew if you gave these people that authority, how they would abuse it, and that's exactly what they're doing. So now they're trying to say that abortion is basic health care, which means that every health plan that has anything to do with Obamacare would have to cover abortion. And as you're just discussing, now they're saying you have to do it with no copay, no nothing, right? It's absolutely free to anybody that wants it.
Now, why can't we get other surgery done like that?
Because, you know, I mean, I hate to say this. The culture of death used to be a phrase that was bandied about fairly often, and we don't hear it much anymore. But this is the culture of death, rising, 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 just like the death panels, right? They were taken out of the bill. Sebelius wrote them back in, and then the legislature forced her to take them back out again, right? Why is that? It's the same culture of death. But we should have protection, at least individual protection, against all of those types of things. Because the First Amendment to the Constitution says that the Congress shall make no law regarding your free exercise of religion, right? And if my religion, which it does, teaches me that I should not kill innocents, then I shouldn't have to participate in that. That's why we have conscientious objector clauses for our military.
Right.
Right? You can be in the health plan, you can be in the military. You don't have to carry a gun and shoot. You don't have to participate with your dollars in a health care plan, but not according to this administration.
And that's one thing a lot of people are not associating yet, is that those who are nurses and practitioners and doctors will not be able to say, no, I will not provide that service for you. They will be mandated by this law. Am I correct?
Well, they will be mandated by the Obamacare, yes.
To perform these different...
But they may be able to actually pose a constitutional challenge along the lines I just argued and say, no, you can't force us to do this. But the cost to them would be enormous, right? So, and it's the same thing right here in the state of New Hampshire right now. There is no protection in New Hampshire for health care providers. Whether it's,
that's been on discussion for a while.
And there's a bill in the House right now that would deal with that, right? And that's House Bill 1653, right, which is in the Judiciary Committee. And at the hearing for it last week, there was some guy there. His name is Smith, I think. I really do think his name is Smith. But he was representing all these medical associations and gynecologists and whatever, 3 or 4 of these big medical associations. And he didn't like the bill at all because he said physicians were protected by the Code of Ethics. Okay, well, maybe they are.
Okay, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that familiar with their Code of Ethics either, right? But it doesn't have anything to do with nurses who are not protected by that Code of Ethics, or pharmacists, or other people who work in operating rooms or other services associated with that industry. So we need that protection in our own law in the state of New Hampshire.
And my understanding is that this would not, it exempts only churches.
Oh, that,
But it does not exempt other medical facilities that are religious in nature, such as Catholic Medical Center.
I was going to just say, we just spent a long time fighting a merger between Catholic Medical Center and Dartmouth for exactly this reason, because we wanted to maintain pro-life medicine in our state, and Catholic Medical Center is the poster child of that, if nothing else.
Yes.
And we were successful in that, and even the Attorney General's office, the Charitable Trust Division, said, no, you can't merge these two together because the mission of Catholic Medical Center is so specifically Catholic and so adamantly pro-life that you can't meld that with
the opposite.
The opposite, which is Dartmouth-Hitchcock.
Right.
But Obamacare would say that
we don't recognize any of that.
If you want any money coming from any health care plan, then you have to participate. in
So-
all of these things, and it's not just abortion. Right? Because it's contraception. A lot of contraceptives are abortifacient. We know that, right? But it's that as well, and it's sterilization, right? There's nothing could be any more anti-child than sterilization. Could there be?
You know, all I can think of when they say that is, you know, back to the days. What was it? It was 68, 70 years ago when immigrants were coming in and they didn't like the way they looked or something, and they were forcing them to be
Forced
sterilized.
sterilizations, yeah. Planned Parenthood was right in the forefront of that.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right? They're still there. They would benefit from this big time, because this would become now basic health care and fully paid for
Wow.
by the government. Planned Parenthood wouldn't even have to go looking for donations or copay or anything. They get all their money coming right out of the federal government, right
I
out
mean,
of
coming out of the taxpayer.
Well, yeah, coming out of the federal, coming out of our pockets, right?
Right, coming out of our pockets.
But that conscience business, that's just terrible.
It
because
really is.
there is the exemption, but the exemption is only for those that actually teach, like, theology. So it'd be questionable about Christian schools. Depends.
Really?
Well, it depends on how theological the teachers are. So if you're teaching math, you probably wouldn't be protected, but if you were teaching Bible, you might be. All right? But when you get into the medical field, there's no protection whatsoever, because you're not teaching the faith. That's what they would say. If you're actually teaching the faith, then you're exempted by their rule. But if you're not, you're not. And, you know, doctors, nurses, pharmacists are definitely not.
Right.
Right?
Wow.
So, and this is not an uncommon situation. It was just a case in New Jersey. 12 nurses were going to lose their jobs because they didn't want to participate in abortion. And it took them a couple months. And the Alliance Defense Fund came to their defense. And eventually the hospital backed down. Right? So they did keep their jobs, and they don't have to participate. Right? But it's the same thing. I mean, it's everywhere. In New York State, it was town clerks.
Yes.
That was the big thing we were arguing about at the hearing on this in New Hampshire. Right? Well, what if you're a town clerk? And there's another bill, right, conscience bill, that has to do with marriage.
Right.
Right? Well, when it came to marriage, that's when we were arguing about the town clerk. Well, what if you're a town clerk and somebody comes in for a marriage license, and because of your religious belief, you don't want to issue them that marriage license? So I said, sure, yeah, you should be able to say no. Well, what if there isn't any other way of dealing with it? Well, come on. It's a town court, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Right? They work for the selectmen, right? I'm sure some selectmen could come out and sign the thing. It would be just fine. But this is the kind of argument they raise. But again, it's a place where we are losing our most basic rights into this culture of death. And it's anti-godly, the whole thing. Believe me, I just believe it's satanic now.
Well, I think, you know, when we were at the committee hearing and you were out in the hallway, you were talking to, was it Channel 4?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Channel 4. I don't know what Channel 4 it was, but...
Yeah, it was, I think it was Channel, I thought that was, I saw on her microphone was Channel 4. But,
yeah, it was 4.
You just gave an outstanding explanation to her. She was asking you again about why you felt the way you did about some of the different bills that were coming out, and you were just sharing, you know, it's my inalienable right to be able to choose who I associate with and who I don't associate with, and the government doesn't have that right, but I as an individual have that right, and I should not be forced to have to, you know, give services to someone that I do not feel holds my values. And it was really wonderful. What you gave to them was very succinct and very well
Thank
done.
you. I've had some opportunity to think about these things a little bit, and I would just say to you that I think it's important that we express these in the proper terms.
Correct.
Right? Now, the word association does not appear in the First Amendment to the Constitution. The First Amendment to the Constitution says, and it doesn't appear, I don't believe, in our own state constitution either.
I'm not sure. But
what it does say is that Congress shall make no law, or that the free exercise of religion shall not be infringed.
right, that is correct.
Right? So I have the absolute right under our Constitution, shall not be infringed. I have an absolute right to practice my religion. And that's what it's not about association. Association is part of practicing my religion. So let's talk about what the Constitution actually says, my religion. We're afraid of that somehow in our country today, right? My God says, my religion says, this is my individual right. And my Constitution says my government has no right to interfere with that. No right. So if I'm doing something that seriously endangers public safety, that's a different, they may have some right to play around the corners.
Right.
But that's about it. Which is why the Supreme Court just ruled 9-0 in this case about whether or not firing somebody was due to their religion. It was actually a religious organization.
Oh,
that was just last week.
That's right.
And they said, no, if a religious organization says we're firing you because of our religion, then that's the end of the story. And the state has no authority to go probing that, right? And it's the same thing with me as an individual, only more so, because I'm an individual. And it's my God-given right. God gives me individuals' rights. He doesn't give rights particularly to organizations or government. He doesn't. He gives them to me.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what I told the committee, and that's what I told Channel 4. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that again.
It was well done. Well done.
But it's the same thing. And it doesn't matter whether it's abortion that we're talking about or it's anything else. I don't care what it is. If you have a religion that says that somebody shouldn't eat carrots, right? And the carrot vendor from down the street comes into your business, you should say, no, I don't want to do business with you.
Right.
And not have a problem with that.
Exactly.
There's somebody else that does the same thing you do. So, it's your free exercise of religion. And we need to be starting to use that term powerfully, because it is powerful.
It is powerful, and if it's not exercised, it will be stifled.
And it is being stifled.
Yeah. Well,
right? More and more.
I agree. I agree. But I believe if we exercise it, it will grow stronger.
God reigns.
That's right.
He will deliver us.
That's right. That's right. So, and I'm astonished. I shouldn't be, but it's still astonishing when you read these things about this healthcare law that's supposed to be so grandiose for everybody, the end-all, be-all for all our healthcare needs, and it's just adding more detriment to everyone as a whole. And I'm very hopeful that we can work to change some of this by electing new people into office coming up in November.
Yeah. This is a case where I really believe that the only way to really fix it is to repeal the whole thing.
Oh, I agree with you.
Right, that you can't tinker around the edges, because if we give the state, which is what Obamacare is really about, and it's the same thing, if we give the state the authority to govern our health care, then what is it about us that they don't govern? Yeah. Right? Because what is it that doesn't affect your health care? Right? If they can call abortion health care, right, they can call me some kind of terrorist for sitting here saying this.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and, I mean, really.
You are correct.
And we just can't let that stand. I
agree. And I think that's another reason why this upcoming election is so crucial. It's so crucial for many of us.
There are things that we can do in between. I mean, I agree with you. But in between, the state laws have a power as well.
Yes, they do.
Because we have a federalist system, and the courts recognize the states have rights. They may be they may not be diminished, but they still have rights, and they still have things like sovereign immunities. So if a state passes a law to make the case that the federal government can't force the state to violate its own law, that can be powerful. That can be powerful.
Now, did that bill go through?
The conscience bills?
No, there was a bill stating just what you were talking about.
Oh, see, I don't know. I'm too busy working on pro-life bills.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I believe it was sponsored by Senator Jim Forsyth, I believe. I know his name is on the bill.
If it is, it's probably it might be a Senate bill.
It might be.
I haven't looked at Senate bills at all.
Yeah, but it said just exactly what you were talking about.
But anyway, so we have the opportunity to write into our own law these rights of conscience. both for medical providers and in regards to marriage.
Now, is there another bill in particular that you would like to talk about that has to do with protecting the unborn, or I know...
Well, we have, all right, so first of all, I'd just like to give a couple bill numbers, just because we can.
Okay.
So House Bill 1653 has the right to conscience for medical providers. And that's in the Judiciary Committee. And they'll be marking that up sometime maybe as early as Tuesday.
Okay.
But almost certainly next week. And so if anybody wants to have the right of conscience for medical providers, or wants to have the right of conscience, that's House Bill 1653, right? So
Right. 1653 is for the medical practitioners.
For medical practitioners.
And 1659 is for...
Women's right to know.
Women's right to know.
Women's right to know. And 1264 is a conscience exemption for marriages.
Okay.
Right? Because we've already seen in other states where churches have lost or partially lost their tax-exempt status because they refuse to let homosexuals get married. Right. We could be in that situation here in the state of New Hampshire right soon. They could be coming in to my church, and saying to my pastor, we want to get married, and when he says, no, we don't marry ungodly relationships in my church, we could be in court and losing our tax-exempt status and maybe a lot more because there's no conscience rights.
Well, I know there was an example, I believe it was New Mexico. There was a woman who was a wedding photographer.
Photographer, yes.
And there was a same-sex couple that came in, and she said, she was very nice to them and said, you know, I would refer you to someone else who's excellent, but I don't perform, you know, I don't do services for same-sex weddings. And they turned around and sued her. Yeah, this is even though they did go contract with the person that she recommended.
Right.
And got everything.
It's not like they didn't get everything they needed or wanted.
Right.
They didn't get it from her, and so they sued. There was another case, I think it was in Nebraska or Iowa, where the person said, I'm going to refer you to this person sitting right over here in the next office, in the same firm. And that wasn't good enough. This isn't about those people getting services. This is about them forcing us to participate in things that violate our conscience, that violate our religion. And so we have to stand for that. That's House Bill 1264, religious exemption for marriage.
Okay.
House Bill 1679 would prohibit partial birth abortion and third trimester abortions in the state of New Hampshire. This is a really good thing because the Supreme Court says we can do that. They actually
Supreme Court.
Once it's in the third trimester, you can actually they use viability, which starts well before the third trimester. But for third trimester abortions, we could absolutely make those illegal in our state. And there's a bill to do that, and that's House Bill 1679 in the Supreme. This will not. I don't believe anybody would even challenge this in the courts because they were so clear in Roe versus Wade, and it's happened in so many other states.
Well, it just seems to make sense to me. I mean, third trimester, you're talking completely formed baby.
Oh, third trimester, they can all live outside the womb right now.
Right, and we know that because it happens frequently.
Often, too often.
That is a very common sense bill.
Right, but the people who oppose that say, well, we don't need that bill because we don't do any of those in New Hampshire anyway.
How do we know that?
Because they tell us. Hey. That's why
we're never allowed to look at the records. So.
Well, but that's why we have an abortion statistics bill that went to Health and Human Services. That was not warmly received. All right, I was at that committee hearing too. All right, and that's House Bill 1680, and that's all it asks for is abortion statistics using the Center for Disease Control form. Right? Because we don't know. The only way we have to know now is what they tell us.
Right.
And they could tell us anything. And we'd go, oh, okay, I guess.
Well, that's what we've been doing all along, huh?
Well, it's tough, you know. I mean, on a couple of these bills, the people that stand outside the clinics and counsel and pray.
Yes, I know.
They witness. And they witness who comes. And they witness who goes. And they know if the people are driving up with Massachusetts plates, that they're probably not from Colebrook.
Probably not.
Right.
Well, Kurt, I want to thank you again for bringing us up to speed on all these great bills. And, you know, I encourage everyone to pray. Please pray about this. Pray about these bills. Pray about these legislatures. Pray about the committees. Ask that God be in there and work in their hearts, that they would do the right thing that according to God's will. And I ask you just to get in touch with your legislator and let them know how you feel, and also contact the Judiciary Committee members and let them know that you would like them to support these bills. And I just thank you so much for joining us, and come back and be with us again. We'll have more news for you, and God bless you.